Hello and welcome everyone, this is Calebovitsch coming to you with another episode of Deck Check. After a couple of weeks of taking a break and waiting for a new set, well, the new set is already upon us. Argent Depths came with more than 200 cards for us to brew with. So what should we do first? Well, maybe we should take a look at the power that is inside the box. Or a chest, or a book, or something like that. Anyway, let's see what the vows are doing now. So as I said, the new set is upon us, and there are 3 new cycles of power cards included therein. I'm not going to touch the symbols. Everyone knows that the symbols are very good. I'm not going to really touch upon the silexes or goblets or Calebo cups, as everyone knows they are good as well. But the biggest question mark from people usually comes to the Vow series. Now, Vow is a half cycle, which means you have 5 out of 10 combinations. And if you look deeper, these 5 two-color combinations are the neighboring colors. If you take a look at the color wheel that we have in Eternal Card Game, what the vows do. Okay, so they have a couple of modes. One is that you can play it as a factionless power that comes into play ready, plain and simple. But obviously there is something deeper here, and well, in the case of Combrai Vow, you can discard a Time or Justice sigil from your deck to your void to gain an influence of that type and take 1 damage. So you obviously don't care about taking that 1 point of damage, you care about fixing. So what this does, especially Combrai Vow, is you can put it in an aggressive deck and, well, it just thins out your deck while providing you with undepleted power of a type or another, because you're choosing one from the 2. But you have to play sigils in your deck, so not a lot of the new power cards for sure. So another thing is that aside from thinning out your deck, you get to put that sigil into your void. Now, what can you do with power that is sitting in your void? Well, there are a couple of options. One of the options that is available in Argent Depths is called Katra, the first seal. I'm specifically talking about the ability of summon, play a power card from your void depleted for each of your units. And I've tried brewing a deck, Xenon deck, with Katra and some vows, but it was not really working. So instead of going for Katra, I went and searched for some old tools that we have in the Time faction that allow you to play sigils from your void. And that is Forgotten Find, the 2-costing time spell that says play 2 power cards from your void depleted. And the other one being Arcanum Hourglass. It's a relic that also costs 2 and has a single time requirement that says at the start of your turn play a random power card from your void. It is ready, but it is random. So if you are playing vows and you are feeding your void with sigils, then you can later play Forgotten Find or Arcanum Hourglass and get those back. So this is huge advantage for you. So the deck would have to be time-based, obviously, and well, if you take a look at all the vows, the 5 available now could be seen here. So for time, it would be just playing 4 Praxis vows and 4 Combrai vows and playing mono time. That is an option, but I wanted to go for an Elysian deck or an Elysian-based deck because of Torgov's Trading Post. This is an old favorite of mine, a side that is not looking that great, but has a couple of cool options. It costs 2. It is in Elysian, and the coolest part about this card is the static ability. I mean, it's triggered at the end of the turn. At the end of your turn, discard a random power card from your deck. Yes, it also goes to your void. It also feeds your Forgotten Finds and your Arcanum Hourglasses. Also, if you call the Ancients and shuffle some finishers into your deck and play 2 cards that do not do anything, I mean, Weather the Storm can get rid of an opposing unit's Aegis, Ask for Direction Scout for 1 turn, and that's it. But they also are spells that go into your void, and then you get to play Torgoth Icecap Trader. That is a 4/5 or a 7/8 if you have at least 10 cards in your void, and those 3 are already in the void. So yeah, this is some sort of synergy for sure, and Torgoth is another finisher for you. So yes, playing this for the static ability, for the triggered ability, but the agendas and the end unit is also a good one. So when I went for an Elysian based, I thought to myself, okay, so we have, for example, Combrai Vows and Huru Vows. So if we have those, we could splash Justice for something as well. So that was in the back of my head. I mean, the other option being, we couldn't go for Praxis Vows because you don't have Skycrack Vows, and with Feln Vows you don't have Xenon Vows. So if you wanted to include a third faction just based off of the vows, well, green is where you should be going. Okay, so the base of the deck is ramping up in a steady fashion with Arcanum Hourglass, or just very rapidly with Forgotten Find. Because the dream scenario is playing a Combrai Vow for time, and another vow, whether Combrai or Huru, for another piece of power. And then playing on turn 2, playing Forgotten Find, and getting those 2 sigils back from your void into play, so ramping from 2 to 4, and on turn 3 being able to play something that costs 5 or more. So ramping up is one of the benefits of this deck. The other one is that you can trigger Empower, or the new version of Empower, yes, I'm calling this version of Empower, called Surge, on a regular basis. Or just having a lot of power to play expensive cards. So that was the engine, those vows and Torgoth's Trading Posts into Forgotten Finds and Arcanum Hourglass. And the payoff here is one of several cards. Well, the old favorite is obviously Mystic Ascendant, the 6 costing time 4/4 Mystic that gets +2/+2 and draws you a card each time you play a power card. So if you have Mystic Ascendant and play a power card, it momentarily turns into a 6/6 and you get to draw a card. If you play Forgotten Find, you get to play 2 of those, etc., etc. Also, if Torgoth's Trading Post discards a vow into your void, and you play it, for example, Forgotten Find, then that vow also feeds your void with another time sigil for your future Forgotten Find or another trigger of Arcanum Hourglass. The other payoff for this type of ramping up is something I was testing out. It is not as great as Mystic Ascendant on the one hand. On the other hand, if you can ult it, it is a huge beast. And we are talking about Jotun Bonebreaker. This is a card from the new set. It is a 5 costing double primal 5/5 with Overwhelm, which is already a very good stat line. Unsurge, which means each time you gain an influence of a type, and in this deck you can while playing power cards you can gain 0, 1 or 2 influence. You get to discard a card at random, then draw a card. And if you're playing a dual power and you're surging twice, these triggers trigger one at a time, which means you discard a card at random, then draw a card, then discard a card at random, then draw a card. Obviously, also, if the surge happens when your hand is empty, you discard a card at random, which means you don't discard anything, then you get to draw a card, which is a decent option if you're running on empty. But also, Jotun Bonebreaker has an ultimate of when you have discarded 10 cards, this gets +10/+10, so it turns into a 15/15. Obviously, you can play it with, I don't know, a couple of Spore Falcon, but this is just 2 copies just to test it out. It is working mediocre at best, but you can ramp it up on turn 3, so there is that. Another great payoff is the Great Parliament, a 4-costing Combrai spell that plays you a 4/4 green owl with flying for every 4 maximum power you have. You only spend 4, but you usually get 2 or 3 owls in this deck. And even if you just play 1, it is still paying 4 for a 4/4 flying owl, which is great, right? Right. So you already know the engine, which is feeding the void, getting power from your void, and the payoff, which is Jotun Bonebreaker, Mystic Ascendant, and the Great Parliament. And I wanted the rest of the deck. I wanted to build as more of a control deck that sometimes can work as mid-range if you get a very good draw as well. So the first couple of turns you want to get your power going or to get your void going with vows and crests and silexes, etc., or just play Torgoth's Trading Post on turn 2. But starting turn 3, you can do a lot of things. You can play Great Valley Smuggler, a 3-costing Elysian merchant that has +2/+2 while you have a relic, and there are a couple of relics in the market as well. On summon, you can choose a card from your hand and swap it with a time or blue card in your market. 4 copies of Sabertooth Pride Leader. I put it here mainly as an anti-aggro card, but you can swap it for any other anti-aggro card you deem necessary or worthy in the Elysian factions, for example, Sandstorm Titan. It is a 3/5 ambushing cat that on summon you get either to kill an enemy relic or you gain 3 health. One and the other option is great, just watch out for that Milos and remember not to make him that much bigger. Bonebreaker and Mystic Ascendant are here as well. 4 copies of Permafrost, which is the fastest way of getting, well, maybe not as a fast spell, but I mean the cheapest way of getting rid of most of the units, especially if you're playing against Faln and or Stonescar, which, well, they can sacrifice those units later, but they usually don't have a lot of endurance and or getting rid of curses and or attachments. 4 copies of Torgoth's Trading Post. I've already talked about them. In the first version of this deck, I was running 4 copies of Seek Power. Tradition Chants are the obvious upgrade. Usually, you will not be able to trigger the Decimate because the only way for you to have double justice in this deck is to play one of the Huru Vows, giving you green and getting the sigil back to your getting the sigil to your void, and then playing that sigil from your void with Forgotten Find or Arcanum Hourglass. So usually this is going to be a Seek Power, but later in the game, in some cases, I mean, it won't be the case if you just go searching for green with Tradition Chant. But if you go for Combrai Vow or for Huru Vow, and go for that justice influence in that way, then you will be able to decimate to invoke a card in one of your 3 colors. And if you're running on 8 to 10 power, that 1 maximum power usually doesn't mean that much for you. Okay, 2 copies of Forgotten Find, I've already talked about them. Now the controlling part comes with 4 copies of Hailstorm, the 3-costing double primal spell that deals 3 damage to each unit. Just mops the board up from all the small and token units. Obviously you can just wrap it up if you are playing 2 copies of Hailstorm. 4 copies of Turn to Seed, the 3-costing double primal spell that transforms an enemy unit and each enemy copy into 0/2 seeds that in 5 turns get bigger, including from their hand, deck, and void. And play, obviously. 4 copies of Wisdom of the Elders, the 3-costing double primal fast spell that draws you 2 cards. Well, you need some card advantage early on as well. And 4 copies of Honor of Claws, the 4-costing primal spell that says discard draw 3 cards, then discard a card. And with this card, you can also usually want to discard a power card to your void so that you can use your Forgotten Finds in a good way, not in a mediocre way. And 4 copies of the Great Parliament. Given that you are only splashing 4 copies of Great Parliament and 1 copy of Vision of Austerity in the market, you don't need a lot of justice sources. And this deck is running 4 copies of Combrai Vow, 4 copies of Huru Vow, 4 copies of Tradition Chant, and 1 copy of a Justice Sigil, which means 12 ways of getting that Justice Sigil either into play or into your void. And, well, that is usually enough for you to play the Great Parliament. So that means that the other power are Elysian only. So you have 4 time and 4 primal sigils, and in this deck you need a lot of sigils because you need them for the chants and you need them for the vows. I mean, later you can just play chants to invoke, And you can play vows as just neutral power cards, and that's it. So with 8 vows, there is not a lot of space for much else. Given that this is a control deck, I've opted for 4 copies of Crest of Wisdom, the Scouting Power, and obviously 4 copies of Elysian Silex. So we are running all 12 available new power cards for the Tradition 3-faction combination. Now, as far as the market goes, you have obviously a lot of options to go for there. I opted to play just 1 Arcanum Hourglass in the market instead of trying to go for Elvish Swindlers, either Elvish Swindler in the market and some Arcanum Hourglasses main deck, or going for Shadow as the 3rd faction and going for Display of Knowledge and looking for it that way. I just thought that 4 Forgotten Finds in the main deck with 4 ways of searching for the Arcanum Hourglass is good enough, especially that with Smuggler you usually want to play a Relic as soon as possible so that the Smuggler can be a 4/4 unit. That is why 1 Hourglass in the market instead of any other combination. 1 copy of Equivocate in the market as fast removal, the 2 costing Elysian fast spell that puts a unit into its owner's hand, then transforms it into a random unit with the same cost. 1 copy of Royal Decree, the 2 costing primal spell that transforms a non-power card in the enemy hand into a Seek power, and an Onslaught, which means if you attacked with the Smuggler that has given you the Royal Decree, you get to transform each other copy in their hand and deck. 1 copy of Vision of Austerity, the 2 costing Huru spell that transforms an enemy relic into an Omen of Austerity cursed relic that disables the enemy player for playing more copies of that relic. And we also have a finisher here because, well, this market needs a finisher, and it is a huge one. It is Pit of Lenecta, the only card that requires more than 2 of Primal or Time Influence. It is a 9 costing relic that says when an enemy unit goes to a void, you gain 2 health, but also Empower, which means each time you play a power card, you get to play 2 7/7 Sandworms exhausted. It is also a relic that buffs Great Valley Smugglers up to a 4/4. So yes, this is a lot of, well, as I said, this is just proof of concept of how the vows work if you want to combine them with Forgotten Finds. Now, this is just theory. Now, let me show you some practical games of how this works, and then we'll return here and talk about the deck some more. And the first game is against Classy Joe. We are going second. We have 3 power that will allow us to play Wisdom of the Elders and Turn to Seed, which should be good enough unless we are playing against a very fast aggro that is going to start hammering at us on turn 1, but it's not. Fortunately, opponent starts on Justice Symbol, giving them 2 Justice Influence into a Seat of Glory and a Treasure Trove, so that additional card we saw in their hand is Zoe, the Hoarder. So we're just playing a second power, and we will be going for Wisdom of the Elders later. The new Iron Thorn, that gives the opponent additional influence. And given that they are running that, I think I want to get rid of that one permanently with Turn to Seed and just disallow the opponent to do any more influence shenanigans. Now what the opponent does is they play Rakano Silex into World Pyre. So yes, we are playing against Rakano World Pyre. The opponent will be able, starting next turn, to pay 4 to play a card from their hand that costs 8 or less. And here I wanted to go for this kind of draw first, because I don't have green yet. I want to draw either Kitty or green power, and yes, I was able to top deck that in 4 cards, so I can go for Great Valley Smuggler, turn my Torgov's Trading Post into Vision of Austerity, and in turn change or transform the opponent's World Pyre into Omen of Austerity, shutting their main engine off. I mean, sure, they still have a 6/6 Flying Dragon, but hopefully I will find a card to withstand that, be it Permafrost or another Turn to Seed. I mean, we do have some options, or another Smuggler for Equivocate. As I said, the options are here. and I do have a couple of power cards in the void already. So I was thinking what to go for here. I could go for, well, an attack, obviously. We do have a relic because that cursed relic on the opponent, well, we own it, so this is a 4/4. I opted to play those 2 power cards from the void because, well, we have 2 copies of the Great Parliament, so we can make 2 owls with each. Or play Mystic Ascendant and a Sigil to redraw a card and make Mystic Ascendant bigger. And opponent seems to be drawing Zo into Zo into Zo. I mean, the first trove was from Rakano Silex, the other was from the Zo that they have just drawn. Now what I want to go for here is play at least one of those the Grand Parliaments. Probably both, and attack the opponent. And I was thinking whether to play Vow or the other one, but yes, we want to thin the deck out. And here come the owls, 4/4 owls, costing 4 with flying. And the seed is turning into its bigger form. And sure enough, opponent is attacking. And they are attacking with everything, which can mean that they either have some tricks or they have a harsh rule or a pristine light at the ready. And it is indeed harsh rule. Okay. So my play here is probably going to be Mystic Ascendant power into Honor of Claws, from the looks of it. We also have Jotun Bonebreaker, but that one isn't the greatest now. Or I could go for Forgotten Find and grab just 1 power card. No, I think we can do better than that. Especially if I draw a power now, I can discard the Silex and play it next turn off of Forgotten Find, turning this 6/6 into a much bigger unit. And that is what I am going to do right now. Just play Forgotten Find, grab those 2 power cards and a treasure trove. And we can play one of the vows as well. Turn that one much bigger. I opted to skip not to be at 8. I mean, not to be too close to opponent being able to kill us. But right now, as it stands, we can turn the dragon to seed and play one of the Great Parliaments. I'll also play a treasure trove because that's how much power we have left. And, well, opponent needs another harsh rule now, but even if they do play it, we have another, the Great Parliament, so sure. Oh, they have a little seed, and another one. Okay, so many of those, and or Iron Thorns. And, I mean, we can Hailstorm already. But I opted for Wisdom of the Elders and Sabertooth Pride Leader end of the opponent's turn. Martyr's Chains, yeah, that's not gonna help them a lot. And it is indeed a victory for this deck. Let's head on over to game number 2. And in game 2, yeah, this is a redraw, just 2 power, that's not enough. This is similar, but at least we have 3 power and we can start with scouting. Tradition Chant, yes, because it can give us green influence. Opponent starts on Fire Sigil and Granite Drone, which means we have to find Hailstorm as soon as possible. But I'm grabbing just a Sigil, playing Allegiance Silex is just getting the influence there. Crest of Chaos is rather slow, but we are still taking 2 damage here. Shakedown is probably gonna take Wisdom of the Elders, not the Forgotten Find. Yeah, sure enough. but we have a copy of each of those cards that were potential targets for shakedown. Seed of Chaos, Milos Rebel Bomber. So yeah, I don't want to play Cat. I need to find either a Hailstorm or a Turn to Seed on Milos before I can play Kitty. And there's a Turn to Seed. And yes, I want to go there. Play the Time Sigil. Pass the turn. Go down to 15, I guess. Opponent still has Sigil in hand, and 4 cards we know nothing about. Yep, down to 15. Silex. I mean, playing Silex and not playing Treasure Trove is a bit suspect. But the opponent apparently is not suspecting anything. So just block one of the Grenadines, go 2 up. Okay, opponent is not doing anything. This is very good. So we can go for a Vow, Trading Post, and Honor of Claws, or just Vow and Honor of Claws first. Because if we draw a power card and discard it, we can play Forgotten Find and get both of those in here. Yeah, so let's discard the Vow, play Forgotten Finds to ramp up. And Cambrai Vow is putting another Sigil in the Void for the second Forgotten Find, so one feeds the other. And this is the synergy of Vows and Forgotten Find and or Arcanum Hourglass that I was looking for the longest of times. And even if we have multiple Forgotten Finds, we can either market them out or discard them with Honor of Claws. Now, I was not going for Targov's Trading Post yet because I have the other kitty, and I was thinking either that or Wisdom of the Elders, but I want to get another power card into my void to play the other Forgotten Find, the second Forgotten Find. And who knows, the opponent might get swayed into attacking into the cat once again. Permafrost on this kitty, sure. Champion of Fury. And, well, yeah, let's stop Champion of Fury. Also, apparently the opponent is playing a third faction, and they were just a bit screwed so far. And Torch the Kitty, sure. Huruvao. Okay, let's ask for directions for a moment. Yeah, no, I want to get it up to the bottom. Yeah, let's go for the Vow. I have some cards I can draw here. Turn to Seed, not the greatest. I mean, we can Turn to Seed that, or we can permafreeze it, and permafreezing it is a very good option. I mean, we will lose Targov's Trading Post, but, well, we have another one in hand. I opted not to go for the Forgotten Finds because I have the probability of drawing a Mystic Ascendant or something like that. Or a Jotun Bonebreaker, that also works. So first I went for Turn to Seed on the crunchiest of crunches and Jotun Bonebreaker. And next turn we can go full random. And by full random I mean discarding random cards from the hand. I was looking whether I have any sigils of these colors left in the deck yet, and I do have a last time sigil. So let's discard Targov's Trading Post, get the kitty. And what? We can go Forgotten Find on Crest and a sigil, so that triggers 3 times. Great Parliament. Well, sure, but I hope I won't be discarding it. Oh, wait, I am discarding it. Could go for another Forgotten Find, but I think I want to go for just an attack. Great Valley Smuggler taking out another Great Valley Smuggler for Pit of Lenecta. And next turn we can Pit of Lenecta into Forgotten Find. And, well, just play 4/7/7 Worms Exhausted. Yeah, so that one dies. We take one, and that's it. So here we go, Pit of Lenecta. Forgotten Find. Get those sigils. Get those worms. Play the Silex. And right now the ultimate is on 9. I didn't want to attack just in case because I have more than lethal next turn anyway. And yeah, opponent sees that one as well. On to game number 3. Now this is a very powerful hand and I can go Vow, Forgotten Find. So sure, let's test it out. Let's test out Turbo Ramp. And obviously I can Vow, look for Justice first, because I don't want to draw it, and get those Primal Sigils in here as well. Yep, let's go for time. Let's grab those 2 back, ramp up from 2 to 4. And opponent is going rather slow here. Now I was thinking whether to go Primal Sigil, look for Primal Sigil and go for Elysian Silex, but I opted to that I wanted to decimate more than I wanted to do anything else. Sand Warrior, okay. So yeah, Silex, and now we can go chant with Invoke. I mean, we are at 6 max power now already, so let's go for the primalist of all sigils. And, well, Defiance, Arcanum, Hourglass, oh my goodness. Yeah, with no power cards in the Void and a Forgotten Find in hand, I opted to just go for Defiance to kill that 3/3 the opponent has. They are playing a Silex as well. Alban Roa, well, the only card that they can make more expensive is Forgotten Find, and I do not need to play that right now anyway. I could go for Combray Vow, I could go for Silex, and I went for Silex just to be able to draw a card. And, well, don't want to turn that to Seed. I should have turned that one to Seed, because I could see now that the opponent is probably playing an even deck. But I went for Hailstorm instead, as I was thinking, yeah, well, they can be playing bigger cards there. And, well, yes, even-handed Golem. Obviously. So that was a small mistake on my part, for sure. Trove they got from Silex. Yeah, okay. So Vow, get that Time Sigil, Targov's Trading Post, get rid of another power card from the deck, get a couple of Titans going, and it's a Silex, which is great because then Forgotten Find is going to give us a treasure trove. Oopsat. Oops, we are empty. Sure. Yeah, that goes down to 1. And now we can scout. Yeah, sure. And I was thinking about that Pit of Lenecta. But I was also thinking on what to do on this board. And, well, the Great Parliament does give us 2 owls. Okay. Now I was thinking what to do here. Because if I play Great Valley Smuggler and grab Bit of Lenecta, then, well, the thing is, I need 9 power, I need Pit of Lenecta, and I need Forgotten Find to get a lot of worms going. So I opted to go the slow way here, went for a time sigil, thinking that next turn, Great Valley Smuggler is going to go for Pit of Lenecta. On the following turn, I will play Pit of Lenecta, and then on the third turn, I will play Forgotten Find. So a very slow round, because I was not sure if I would play, if I would get to draw another power card. Now, what the opponent does, well, the site dies for sure. So let's take the Grazier down with it. You also gotta be careful about those little seeds. Always count when they're gonna grow. Because once they grow, oh, they're very big. Yeah, opted for an attack, to go for an attack. Because our 2/2, well, stops their army of 1/1s right now. And yes, the slow route of Pit of Lenecta. I obviously could have traded Forgotten Find for it, and went next turn Pit of Lenecta into a power card, but, well, I wanted to go for the highest reward. Alright, so this is just going to be Pit. I mean attack and Pit. I was just checking how many power cards I have in the Void. Touch of Battle. And this is gonna be harsh. Mayvelift Huntress, interesting. Okay, the owl is dead. Yeah, we just want to block the Grazier, and we need to find an answer to the O2. Soon to be a 5/7 overwhelm. Another little seed, sure. Wisdom of the Elders. Yeah, let's draw first. I opted to go for that instead of replaying an owl. Bonebreaker could be nice. Yeah, I'm stopping that. And I'm getting Vow to feed my Void even further, and Crest, because I won't be able to play Treasure Trove next turn anyway. Yeah, Turn to Seed seems nice. And discarding another power card, sure. Yetipold has gotten deadly off of Touch of Battle, which means 3 of our units are now gonna die, and the opponent is gonna stun their own unit and draw 3 cards. Yeah, they killed 2 worms and the smuggler, to my surprise. I was thinking they would just kill 3 worms. And Silex into drawing a card once again. But first we are getting attacked down to 18. And with the opponent just having 1 blocker, I was thinking that was rather suspect. But I did not draw a removal spell for the O2 yet. I could try though. Nope, it's just a 6/6 Endurance Aegis. A couple of chum blocks later, and we get to play Titan and the Owl. I left Jotun Bonebreaker for later, especially if I draw power. Danica Ruined Witch. That's interesting tech. Desert Alchemist, so they probably want to change a power into a trove, yes. Well, they do have deadlies aplenty. Another Forgotten Find. Do we have anything left here? 1. Well, okay, it's still something. So in theory I could, what, ace space? But first I can also just play Turn to Seed on Desert Alchemist, so they don't have that as a deadly. Play Bonebreaker. Play Forgotten Find. Wait a moment. Play the Time Sigil. Discard no cards and draw a card. And get 2 worms. Honor of Claws, yeah, that's going to be rather good. I opted to attack with everything aside from that 6/6 because it has Aegis. I mean, opponent could have another Touch of Battle, and they do, and they could just take everything out. So I don't want to give them my Aegis unit just to be blocked by the 1/3. On the other hand, if I took a closer look, I would have seen that this would be lethal, because they have 5 blockers and I would have had 7 attackers. So my mistake, I had lethal there. Sorry opponent for prolonging your torture. Because indeed they can wipe out most of my board right now. In the form of a shifted Tamaris Earthshaker. Oh, they're drawing cards, so I need 1 piece of removal for the 1/1. Or 2 pieces of removal now. Permafrost. Let's see what we can draw. Maybe a hailstorm? No. Okay, so yeah, let's discard the Smuggler. And I can play Permafrost, Ace Space, and win. Alright, so the deck is doing rather okay, or at least was doing rather okay in these 3 games. Now let's head on back to the studio and talk about the deck some more. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Can Vows ramp? Yes, they can. I didn't come up with a funky cool name for the deck. It is just Trading Post ramp, because, well, Torgov's Trading Post was here first. Anyway, I believe you can do much more with the Vows. I believe you can go much deeper with the Forgotten Finds as well. I'm not sure Jotun Bonebreakers are that bone-breaking right here. You could probably find something much better in those spots, or in more expensive spots at least. I think the market doesn't need Vision of Austerity, could have something else in that slot, or another piece of removal instead of Equivocate. But all in all, it is a fine and dirtily control/mid-rangey deck that can draw a lot of cards and can have a lot of power on the board at a time. Alright, this is going to be it for the video. Thank you very much for watching. And remember, if you're enjoying my videos, remember to click on subscribe. And I will try to restart posting a deck check each week. Alright, thank you. Have a great day. Take care and remember to play more games. Calebovitsch out.